Yeah. Yeah, well, the good news is you seem very self-aware, and that's great. Yes, I know exactly why I'm miserable. I am so self-aware that I think it's actually kind of ruining my life. Can you help with that? Oh, not at all, no. But would you like to identify some cognitive distortions instead? Now, for the record, I'm not saying that therapy can never help with painful self-awareness. Heaven knows it's helped me with mine. However, I will say that in my experience, and it would seem in the experiences of many other folks who experience painful self-awareness, it seems like many therapists view self-awareness as one of, if not the only, major goal of therapy. So once you demonstrate self-awareness, they aren't always sure what to do with you. But self-awareness alone is not enough to feel better, as many of us know. So what else is it that we need? I won't leave you hanging. The secret is self-compassion. I know that sounds really cheesy and really oversimplified, but stick with me here. In this video, I will expand and explain on why self-compassion is not just a buzzword. It is not just some like self-help guru, whatever nonsense word. It is truly the key to getting past that painful self-awareness that's keeping you trapped. If you stick around until the end of this video, I promise you'll walk away with tools that can actually help you feel better. Hi there, my name is Megan and welcome to the Neurocuriosity Club, the only YouTube channel that I'm aware of that is specifically made for people who think they might be autistic, they might be ADHD, but they're really not sure. They are what I call neurocurious. So let's get curious about our brains together. Okay, so why do some of us experience painful self-awareness in the first place? Where does this come from? I believe that generally speaking, it is coming from a place of over-intellectualization in order to protect our emotions. Now, why do we over-intellectualize? Well, there's lots of reasons for that. One reason for this is just being autistic. A lot of autistic people understand ourselves as a brain with a vaguely related body that goes with it and vaguely related emotions that goes with it. But first and foremost, we are a brain. We are our thoughts. And this is not a bad thing, by the way. I see a lot of like weird shaming online of over-intellectualization, like it's this horrible big bad thing, but I don't think so. I think understanding the world cognitively is just one lens, and some people look through that lens, other people look through a more emotional lens, some people look through more of a body lens, and all of it's fine. We need that diversity. However, over-intellectualizing our emotions can mean that we don't always feel them to their full capacity, which means we don't always understand them, and it can be hard to integrate them into who we are. So does this mean if you over-intellectualize, that automatically means you're autistic? No, not what I'm saying. There's lots of other reasons that people tend to intellectualize their emotions. Potential reason number 2 is childhood emotional neglect. Childhood emotional neglect is complicated, but to put it simply, it's basically when your emotional needs were not taken care of, were ignored, were invalidated. It's not emotional abuse. It's not about what happened. It's about what didn't happen, the support that wasn't there. And a lot of people who go through childhood emotional neglect learn to shut down their emotions because they received no warmth or support when it came to those emotions. So we learned that they were bad and we shut them down. And instead, we learned to rely on our brains. Potential reason number 3 that you might tend to over-intellectualize is something called glass child syndrome. This is basically when you maybe had a sibling who had more overt needs than yours. It's not that they had more needs or that they needed more or they were more special or more broken or more anything. It's just that their needs were more overt. They were more on the surface. They were easier to see. And your needs weren't met as much because the consequences for not meeting your needs impacted other people less. Now, this isn't your sibling's fault, okay? I'm not blaming your sibling. You don't have to blame your sibling. Heck, we don't even have to blame your parents. We don't have to blame anyone. All we have to do is look at the reality of the situation and say, yeah, there was some other stuff going on and my needs ended up not being met. I became a glass child. And finally, the 4th reason that you might tend to over-intellectualize is something called twice exceptional. So twice exceptional basically means you are both gifted and disabled in some way. So you might have ADHD and also have an exceptionally high IQ, or you might have an exceptionally high IQ and also have dyslexia. This happens all the time. And a lot of twice exceptional people use that high IQ, the quick processing power, however you want to define giftedness, they tend to use that giftedness in order to overcompensate for that disability. It can then hide the disability, which makes it harder to get diagnosed, harder to be taken seriously, harder to feel valid, and it can make it harder to connect to our emotions, because we have learned that the only way we are good, the only way to prevent us from being seen as broken, is to appear very smart. We learn that our rationale and our logic is more important than our emotions. So those are some of the reasons that you might over-intellectualize and become painfully self-aware. But why is it that therapists are so obsessed with making us self-aware or helping us become self-aware, but they seem completely unequipped to help us use that self-awareness to actually feel better? First up is the pathology paradigm. This is the entire school of thinking that surrounds modern psychiatry and much of modern psychology. And it's basically this: if you do not fit into the capitalistic, heteronormative, white supremacist ideals of society, there's something wrong with you. It's pathologized. And this is not me saying that autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, OCD, these things are not disabilities, because they absolutely can be. I'm simply saying that the pathology paradigm cuts us off from context. The pathology paradigm doesn't consider, the environment that you're in, or the people you're around, or the expectations that are put on you from the society that we live in. It just says, hey, your behavior isn't convenient for me, so there's something wrong with you. So what does this have to do with painful self-awareness? I think a lot of therapists are kind of trained to believe that mentally ill people don't fully understand their mental illness. And if they did, they wouldn't do half the things they do, right? Because they would understand it, and so they wouldn't do it. Personally, I think this is a fundamental misunderstanding of mental illness. Are there some mentally ill folks who don't really understand their mental illness and might make different choices if they did? Absolutely, 100%. Education is invaluable. But are there many of us who know exactly why we're doing what we're doing and would love to stop doing it, but can't seem to actually change our behavior despite the fact that we know what we're doing and why? Yeah. Absolutely, there's lots of us like that out there too. The pathological paradigm says that we aren't the experts on our experience, and that if we simply knew what the experts knew, we would start to feel better. It really prizes self-awareness as the goal. If you're looking for an alternative to the pathological paradigm, I really recommend the neurodiversity paradigm. There's a wonderful book called We're All Neurodiverse by Sonny Wise. I recommend everyone check it out. My affiliate link will be in the description. The second reason that so many therapists tend to value self-awareness over actual change is something I'm calling trickle-down therapeutics. This is just a snarky name I'm giving top-down therapy methods. And top-down therapy methods can be great. These are methods that basically go through your thoughts and start to affect change through your body by changing the thoughts. It starts with your thoughts. Some examples of top-down therapy are mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, and even dialectical behavioral therapy. And you might be thinking, those are all the forms of therapy I've ever heard of. Are there other options even? And the answer is yes, of course. There are absolutely other therapies out there that are bottom up. So bottom-up therapy is basically start with the body, and then they move up and they change the thoughts through changes in the body. Bottom-up therapies include things like EMDR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, internal family systems therapy, and schema therapy. So if all you've ever done is cognitive behavioral therapy, don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of value in there. I'm working with a cognitive behavioral therapist right now, but she's incredibly trauma-informed, and it completely changes the way that she does cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not your typical CBT. It's very attachment informed. It's very codependency informed, because hey, I have some issues with that. And it really acknowledges the trauma that's stored in my body as we work through the thoughts that result from that. So I'm not knocking top-down therapies. I'm just saying they alone are usually not the answer to this painful self-awareness. Speaking of that, why is our self-awareness so painful? Why does it hurt so much? And why doesn't it seem to help us the way our therapists think that it should? My theory is that our self-awareness is actually incomplete. And you might be thinking, whoa, you've spent this whole time talking about painful self-awareness. People who are so self-aware, who know so much about themselves that they feel utterly trapped by it. And now you're telling me I don't know enough about myself? What are you talking about? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. So here's the thing. In dialectical behavioral therapy, there's a concept called wise mind. And wise mind is when we combine our logical brain and our emotional brain to create the wise mind. However, if you're painfully self-aware, if you tend to over-intellectualize, you are really prioritizing that logical brain. And you're kind of neglecting the emotional brain, which if you've been through childhood emotional neglect, replicates the trauma that you've been through, so that not only were you traumatized by other people, you're now re-traumatizing yourself. Emotion is an inherently human thing. And when we try to deny that, we tend to breed shame. We tell ourselves that there's something wrong with that part of us. We need to shut it down. We need to ignore it. We just have to think our way out of this. And that's just not how humans work. So what's keeping us from connecting with our emotions? I think when we are painfully self-aware, we hit a wall, and that wall is self-compassion. Picture it like this. You're on a choo-choo train and you're just going forward, learning all the things. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden you hit a wall. And you're like, oh crap, I can't get through this wall. All of a sudden the choo-choo train turns into a roller coaster. You kind of do a loop-de-loop and you come back around and you learn the same things over and over again. Who else with painful self-awareness has had this experience where you have like the same epiphany 18 million times? So you're on the choo-choo train, you hit the wall and you're like, I can't get through here. I guess I'll just loop around and I'll learn it again. Maybe I'll gain enough momentum to break through, right? And you just keep going and going and going. And frankly, you're starting to get dizzy and sick, but you can't get through the wall. What is this wall? The wall is self-compassion. The wall would be actually acknowledging that there are good things to learn about yourself too, not just crappy things. Because here's the thing, you're on the choo-choo train and you're learning all this like disturbing stuff about yourself, right? Like, oh, I am that way because of this pain I went through, because of this trauma I experienced, because of this painful experience that I've had. Or like, let's say you're very aware of the ways you've hurt people in the past, you know, unintentionally, but still. That tends to be the stuff our painful self-awareness focuses on. We don't tend to get painfully self-aware of how kind and generous we are, right? So you're hitting the wall of self-compassion. And I think the reason our painful self-awareness doesn't help us the way we think it should is because on the other side of the wall is all the information about how we are worthwhile and decent and good. And we think that all the information on this side, all of the like bad stuff, means that we're not allowed to go through the wall. We're not allowed to have access to that good stuff. But that's, again, not how humans work. We're both. We have terrible power to be truly horrible to each other. All of us have that within ourselves. And we have a truly incredible power to be good and kind. All of us have that within ourselves. And the truth is, we can't be fully self-aware if we're not going to accept anything good about ourselves. That's not real self-awareness. So what now? How do you break through the wall? How do you accept good things about yourself when you've been denying them for years? How can we use this information we have about ourselves, the good, the bad, the neutral, to make improvements in our lives and actually feel better? First up, you need to do some bottom-up processing. This is gonna feel really uncomfortable for the over-intellectualizers, okay? Because we're very used to going top-down. We're like, okay, here are my thoughts and it affects this and it affects that, and I can just change the thoughts and it'll trickle down. That's not how a lot of this really works though. It can work sometimes, obviously, like I mentioned, but it just doesn't work all the time. So I recommend getting into therapy, trying EMDR, trying internal family systems, trying schema therapy. But if therapy is not an option for you, if you don't feel safe with therapists anymore because they keep doing this whole you're so self-aware thing, like I get it. There are some things you can do on your own too, like EFT tapping. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and EFT tapping is basically when you tap really specific spots, mostly on your face, and as you tap, you talk yourself through difficult emotions. Now I know this might sound very out there for some of you, but it actually has a lot of scientific research, both through Western medicine and traditional Chinese medicine, showing that it is very effective. There are so many great resources for this out there, including I have the EFT Tapping Ultimate Bundle, where I talk you through difficult emotions like shame, anxiety, and depression while telling you where to tap. Another great way to do some bottom-up processing on your own is to build up your intuition, and my favorite way to do this is actually through oracle cards. Regular journaling can be bottom-up, but a lot of times for over-intellectualizers, we tend to go top-down. Right? We tend to be like, okay, let's think about our emotions, let's process them, let's try to like make them make sense. And that's very top down. But with oracle cards, what tends to happen is you pick a card and you have to like, okay, how does this sit with me? How does this feel? Like, what is my intuition saying about this card? And that involves getting in touch with your body and your emotions. So it tends to be much more bottom up. Now, again, this one might be a little too out there for some of you, but personally, I've found it incredibly effective. The second way to break through that wall is with new experiences. See, trauma usually isn't formed through just thoughts alone. Trauma happens through the experiences that we have. And so the best way to heal it is through new experiences that show us that the world is safe, people can be trusted, and other, positive social thoughts. If you've been through some shit, you might not believe those things right now. And the world may feel very scary. Other people may feel very scary. Heck, yourself, you might feel very scary. And we can do all the thinking that we want about that, and that can help us tremendously. But we also need new experiences that show us that we can be trusted. Other people can be trusted. The world can be trusted. Now, I'm not saying go out there and put yourself in dangerous positions to try to prove yourself that the world is safe, and then what if something else traumatic happens and then you just get re-traumatized? That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm saying find relatively safe situations that involve a little bit of risk or a little bit of discomfort, and put yourself in those situations and just pay attention. Are you safe? Are you taken care of? Can you handle this? And you can slowly increase your tolerance for trusting yourself and trusting others through these experiences over time. The third way to break through that wall is to practice self-compassion. And I have some really good resources and ways to do that. Number one is inner child conversations. Chatting with your inner child and letting them talk back is really powerful. And I know, again, it sounds a little out there, but we carry all past versions of ourselves within ourselves. And it's important to talk to your inner child and to listen to them when they talk. For me, what this looks like on a practical sense is I usually let my husband know, like, hey, I need you to take care of the kids. I got to do some therapy stuff. And I go upstairs, I turn off all the lights, I get under a little blanket cocoon, and I just kind of lay there. And I try not to think about anything necessarily. I just lay there for a little bit until eventually I tend to start crying, because that's me, I guess. And from there, I allow my inner child to speak. I ask her, hey, what do you need me to know? How are you feeling? And, it can get pretty real. Sometimes my inner child is mad at me. Sometimes my inner child is sad. Sometimes my inner child feels abandoned. And that can be heavy stuff for a child to bear, but that's why you're there too. Adult you can help take care of child you. Another great way to practice self-compassion is by accommodating yourself. Stop trying to brute force your way through everything. Stop trying to pretend you're neurotypical if you're not, and try to accommodate your needs. A great example is me filming this video right now. So in between takes, I am rocking back and forth. I am messing with my fingers. I am fidgeting and stimming and getting all of my anxiety about being on camera out in between takes. And this is so much kinder to myself than trying to force myself to just film, just keep going, don't take breaks, you shouldn't need breaks, what's wrong with you, all that negativity. Instead, I'm just like, yeah, I need to rock a little bit in between takes because my body needs to move. One more way that you can practice self-compassion is through joy and pleasure. You deserve to feel happy. And I'll just let that sit there for a minute because I think a lot of people need to hear that. It is okay to go out of your way to make yourself happy. There's so many ways we can bring joy into our lives and pleasure into our lives, whether that's your favorite home-cooked meal, or maybe it's getting a cute little coffee drink every now and again, or maybe it's sitting outside in the sunshine after it's been raining for a week. You deserve joy. You deserve pleasure. You deserve happiness. It's okay to seek those things. And finally, one more way you can break through the wall is actually with some top-down processing. And I know I was like, oh, this isn't as effective, but there are certain types of top-down processing that I do find pretty effective, so let's talk about those. First is wise mind, which we've already discussed, right? Combining the rational with the emotional to create wisdom. The second is something called bridge thoughts. So this is basically where you take a thought you're currently having that you're not like super thrilled with, isn't super helpful, and then you have a thought that you'd like to think instead, but feels kind of out of reach, kind of feels honestly like bullshit. And you're trying to convince your brain it's true, but your brain is just not on board. A bridge thought connects those thoughts and it's much more neutral. So let me give an example. I used to truly believe that I was unlovable. I truly believed that in my core. Well, the thought I wanted to think instead was, I'm easy to love. It's easy to love me, right? But that just felt completely nonsensical. That felt so far from true. My brain could not even begin to accept that. So I needed a bridge thought. And the bridge thought that I used for a long time was just, I am human. We started with, I'm not the devil, because there was a brief period of time where I thought maybe I was possessed or something. Like, that's truly how horrible I thought I was. So I was like, I'm not the devil. I'm not. And that led me to, I'm human. I'm human, and that involves good and bad, right? I'm just human. I'm no better or worse than anyone else in this world, right? So that was there, you know, like, I'm not the devil. I'm human. And then as we approached the I'm easy to love, I started thinking, some people love me and I don't think they're crazy for doing so, you know, because there are people in my life who love me and I don't want to like negate their love or tell them they're wrong to love me. But like, I do kind of wonder, you know, what's going on and like why. But I realized I didn't think they were horrible or crazy or I had duped them necessarily. And sometimes I worry about that. But, you know, for the most part, I was like, no, they're not crazy for loving me. And so like that was another bridge thought that eventually got me. I don't know that I truly believe that I'm easy to love, but I don't think I'm impossible to love anymore. And so I'll take it. And finally, the last top-down processing strategy that I really love is likes and dislikes. If you feel really out of touch with who you are, like you have all this painful self-awareness, but at the same time, you kind of feel like you don't exist, I really recommend making a list of likes and dislikes. Just very upfront, very straightforward, very simple. What do you like? What do you dislike? And you might find this to be really hard. Again, that's because our self-awareness is incomplete. It doesn't treat us as a true human being. It treats us as a problem to be solved, and that's not true self-awareness. So to build real self-awareness, what we need is to know who we are. And so starting with what you like and what you dislike is a really simple and kind of fun way to do it. For me, I honestly started with foods because I'm kind of a picky eater. I know what I like and dislike when it comes to food. So that's where I started, and then I slowly morphed into, you know, some more serious stuff. But yeah, start wherever it's easiest. So I know that painful self-awareness can feel like the kiss of death in therapy. It can make us feel very alone in a space where we are supposed to feel most accepted and embraced. Now, YouTube is not therapy, but I hope that this video has made you feel seen and heard and held. And I hope now you have some tools for working with it instead of feeling smothered by it. If you want to work with a coach on some of this, not a therapist, but a coach, I am accepting one-on-one clients right now. Go ahead and go to the link in the description and book a $15 discovery call where we can chat about this painful self-awareness and see if maybe we would be a good fit to work together. In the meantime, start breaking down that wall with some self-compassion, and I will see you next time.